Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Karen Brown Stovell, and I'm one of the co-founders of Impact Hub Metro, and I also lead Forward Ever Sustainable Business Alliance, which is a locally focused nonprofit in Newark, New Jersey. I'm very excited to be a part of this session of Impact Hub and to be in the presence of these two amazing innovators. Impact Hub, I'll tell you a little bit about Impact Hub. NY Metro is a nonprofit supporting entrepreneurs and change makers through programs designed to help impactful ideas succeed. We work across the New York Metro broadly and are a part of a global association of entrepreneurial communities in more than 100 cities in over 50 countries. Impact State of Mind is a virtual series created to support innovators and connect the impact community, especially during the COVID-19 crisis. So we're going to jump right in. We're only going to talk for a half an hour. We're going to keep it short and sweet, really packed with some really great information. I just want to talk a little bit about rules of engagement. I'm going to switch it around a little bit. Instead of having everyone just ask questions at the end, I'd like to invite people to throw their questions in the chat, and I can try to weave them in the conversation so we don't have to wait until the end. So having said that, let's start. So I'm going to just, we would love to hear about your respective work dedicated to creating impact within your local communities. So I'm going to start with Nandini, and tell us about Homeworks Trenton and how it relates to the UN's SDGs, specifically any SDG that you are more aligned with, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you so much, Karen. Very excited to be here. So I'm Nandini, and I'm the Program and Development Manager at Homeworks Trenton, which is the first after-school residential boarding program that exists. So we run in Trenton, New Jersey, work for high school girls, and they go to their public schools during the day and then come back to our dorm after school to engage in programming focused on academics, civic engagement, life skills, and women empowerment. And they spend 5 days overnight at our dorm, and then they go back and spend the weekend with their families. And, we're very community-based, so we have partnerships with the public schools, with the families, where our main goal is to build up the Trenton community rather than take away from it. So everything we do is really mindfully related to that. In terms of the UN SDGs, I would say the first three that really stand out that connect to our work at Homeworks is gender equality, because we do work with high school girls specifically, and also quality education. I think we provide the boarding school experience that, those wraparound services of living within a community and having academic tutoring, mentorship right at your fingers, but free of cost. So really, bringing that experience that might not be available to people who will really benefit from it. And in that same line, reduced inequalities. Oh, Karen, sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, go ahead. Go right ahead. No, I'm just.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and then reduced inequalities in like a very similar fashion of just, bridging that education gap and the opportunity gap so that people can have these awesome experiences, especially when they're teenagers, and can really benefit from living in that community of sisterhood. And another one that really stands out to me is the partnership to achieve the goals, which is the last SDG. And for me, that's so important at our work because we're so, community-based. We partner with so many different organizations to make our work possible. Like all of our workshops are from community leaders, trained educators who come in and volunteer their time. All of our food is donated through a local sustainable food organization. So really we're partnering with different community organizations to, make this all possible. And I think, that's the way forward for everyone. So it's really nice that we can model that.
That is fantastic. I want to, before I jump in and invite Kenrick into the conversation, can you tell us a little bit about how this came to be? You said it's the first ever type of model I guess, ever in the United States, maybe, or the world. Tell us a little bit about how that came to be and how you got involved and all of that.
Yeah, so actually, me and my boss, who is the founder, we both went to boarding school when we were in high school. That's how we met each other because she was only a few years older than me. So when she was at Princeton, she started this model of this after school residential program, which really takes all the benefits of a boarding school, but doesn't have the cost associated, doesn't have the cost of leaving your home community or your home public school, because those are all great resources that we want to build up in the community. So rather than taking away from that, we're investing in them. So she started in 2016 and we've run 4 programs since then. I came on at the beginning of 2019. So, and I came on through that connection I had from my living with my boss when we were younger. So it's
Wow.
all about like building those connections too, that we're facilitating now for our scholars who live in the Homeworks house with our house team, who are amazing, amazing women who really lead the scholars and lead our programming, set the tone, and are amazing role models. So that's like a little bit about how we came to be, as a combination of like boarding school, supporting public schools, and having that after school programming.
That's fantastic. So now, Kenrick, um, you run this wonderful app, Constituent. Tell us a little bit about that. And I wanted to really talk about, the connection. When you said the connection, these are lifelong, probably connections that people will have, lasting connections. I know for me, I still talk to my college roommate, and I graduated college a long time ago, right? And those kind of connections. Moving right into how we connect, let's talk about Constituent and how people can be more connected in their communities.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I do want to
Very
say a shout out to the Impact Hub team, the Brooklyn Fellowship, not just for the learning, but growing over the last couple months, which have been the busiest of my life, as many of you all know. But
Yeah.
it's been a great opportunity to do these kinds of things, and also the sessions. So I do want to give a shout out to Karen and JP and Arshna and Mo. Y'all are a fantastic team.
Thank you.
So Constituent, I like to think of, is a simple, free, low-tech approach to getting everyone involved in local politics, and starting with local elections. We tend to think of politics, particularly for marginalized communities or communities that have not been engaged in power, as something that happens to us. I want politics to be about building communities. And for us, the most important way is for people to get involved at a local level, to get to know how to vote, where to vote, who's running for what, and when. Um, the United States, particularly, is a federal system. So power is shared, decision-making is shared with 50,000 different bodies. We always think, well, if we vote for the president, he will fix the potholes. That is not true.
Yeah.
Even if we vote for Congress, they may send money to your local elected officials at the state and the city level to fix your potholes, and education and police reform and sanitation, every kind of service or policy that impacts our lives tend to be at a local level. Those are decisions made in town councils and city halls and state legislatures. And hardly anybody puts those people in office. Across the country, turnout in local elections, if it's a good day if it's 20%. And that has been dropping precipitously over the last couple decades, as the media has made larger elections more important and smaller ones more invisible. And there are a lot of other barriers that we can talk about, but our approach to this is that, how do we get more people involved? And it starts for us with just giving a tool to make local politics and local elections more accessible. So on our app, people will find information on how to register, where to vote, what the deadlines are, and who's running and for what. So if it's a city council seat, you'll figure out what district that is. All the candidates running is nonpartisan. If they're on the ballot, they'll be on our app. And I think in terms of UN goals, goal 11, sustainable communities and cities, obviously, is a natural. But I would like to think that people being able to hold their elected officials and their leaders to account and to be more involved in the systems of policy making, the more people who are more involved, the more people who are educated about policy and have the tools to hold policymakers accountable will improve all of those goals. I think much of the inequities in the world is because power is so removed from the people who are impacted by policy. So I think I will take license to say that goal 11 and the partnerships, of course, but just getting more people to have a say in the electoral system in the United States and other countries even will impact everything across the board.
Yeah, when you both were speaking, I was taking a couple of notes, and I put down, we shared when we had our, earlier conversation, my background, I was, worked closely in politics for many years on the local level, and empowerment has kept coming to mind. Right. And when we were talking about the young ladies that you're working with, Nandini, right? Empowerment at the core, when people feel that they have value and that they are valued and that they are empowered, then they take the next step, right? Usually ensuring that that their voice is heard. And so what you're doing, right, Nandini, is at the core, right, of getting Black and brown girls' voices, making them feel like they're heard. And so hopefully that generation, right, and others will move forward feeling like, I do have something to say and I do have something to offer, because representation does matter, right? So, but also what I was thinking about when you were talking, Rick, is about being, politics being palatable. When I would hear about it, all along, like say over the last 10 years, people would say things like, oh, well, all politics is the same. It doesn't matter, if I vote or not, because it's, it's the system that's so up here. They are not aware of how it works, right? And so, and then no one has taken the time, like you've taken the time to build something. Well, probably back then there wasn't the opportunity to have those kinds of, digital platforms, but there wasn't a platform for them. They felt as though they could ask questions, understand why it matters. For example, we just had school board elections here in Newark, right? I saw more commercials about the school board election than I did about the presidential election for the first time, which was absolutely amazing. So what I want to know is, next thing is, why are you passionate about this work, and what path kind of led you to this, given the fact that there was no other path, right? Nandini, you created a path that, out of something, right? As did you, Kenrick. I'll let you speak since Kenrick. What made you so passionate about this work, or this particular a facet of the digital economy?
I'm a political fiend. I had an electoral map when I was 12 years old. It was a 1992 election. I have 2 degrees in policy and politics, and I've spent 20 years working primarily in New York City on issues that are impacted by local politics. And I still had problems finding information on local elections and the local politics and getting in contact with people in their offices, because they didn't have to be accountable. If 4% of the community is voting for you, as long as you are taking care of that 4%, you don't have to do the rest. So 2 things I would say. One, that experience, that if I have so much access and I have so much background knowledge, and this is hard for me, then imagine the person who doesn't do this for a living, right? is not, in the political world, how difficult it is for them to make an impact by voting. And two, everything else I've worked in my career, even beyond my career, everything I care about as a queer person of color, as an immigrant, as somebody who's deeply rooted in various communities, is impacted by local politics. I always say, elections will not change everything, but if everything could be changed by one thing, it would have already been changed. So people are like, well, this is not the road to liberation. I agree. There are many tools, but probably I will still, die on this hill that the most effective way of changing policy is putting people in power who can change policy. Because everything else is important to getting us there, but this one, with a stroke of a pen sometimes, someone can make changes over the lives of people that is truly important, and that will take a vote. It's just a matter of getting people there.
Changes over the lives of people, whether it's good or bad.
Yes.
Because I remember having a conversation at a conference and everyone heard of, you hear about Austin, Texas, and South by Southwest, right? It's like this big place, this small place with this big personality. And they just happen to have someone, the person that runs a local first organization similar to mine, she happens to have someone on her team that just scours the local, the local politics. What's going on? What are they going to be talking about in the at City Hall? What's going to be on the agenda, right? She happened to this particular week saw something about mandate of smokestacks, right? So Texas, obviously barbecue, everything's a lot of barbecue. So basically, without going into detail, if they had not seen it, right, and if they didn't have someone purposely, intentionally scouring the papers, making sure that their interests as a local community, as small independent impact kind of entrepreneurs, right? This particular organization was a barbecue company. These companies would have been out of business because these smokestacks that they were trying to mandate were $100,000 or better. So now they could just slip that right on in, right, into your local, let's say, city council meeting. And then next thing you know, if you're not involved, you don't have a business. So it is very important to get people to feel that they have a voice, their voice matters, and that they are, it is their duty to hold people they elect accountable, right? So I don't want to, I'm a political junkie too. I don't want to jump on the high horse here, but I want to touch a little bit about it is Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, right? And so I think it's a perfect sort of intro into, do you think that your heritage, your unique talent, or pose any unique challenges at this time as an entrepreneur and doing this work? And specifically, a lot of times when we are people of color, we're considered minority. I hate that term, but we have more of a fight in us, right? But sometimes we get a little tired. So talk to me a little bit about Nandini, about how your heritage and this particular month, what it means to you.
Yeah, this is such a great question. I spent a long time thinking about it because, it's always so present, but to put it all into words is something else that other people can, relate to and understand. And I think going back to just the way I was raised, I think that has just played so much into who I am today and why I do the things that I do as the oldest sibling in an Indian family. I've always had a lot of responsibility and always, kind of taking on a lot of the family role, making sure that it was always kind of understood from my parents and me that I'm an extension of them, and that I'm responsible not only for myself and my family, but also my community. And just growing up in a very tight-knit Indian community also reinforced that, it's not just the success of me, it's not just the success of my family, it's the success of our community. And I think, minority cultures, which, to use like a lack of a better term, I think that's something that's very ingrained in us, that it's not just individual success. And I think sometimes I struggle with like also being American. I think in America, we have a culture of individual success that is very strong. Like, I'm going to succeed, I'm going to make money, I'm going to make change, I'm going to be successful, and that'll help my immediate family. But what I want to challenge, like through my work, through the work at Homeworks, through like my everyday connections, is let's broaden that idea of individualism, because I think we can, as Americans, be so much more successful if we start, looking more into our communities. Like Kenrick was saying, like, how can we equip people in communities to come together and make change and believe that that's possible? I think a lot of times, due to so many reasons, we say like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm one person, I can't do anything. And I think that's also like a very individualistic way of thinking. If we all come together, that's how we can make change. And I think that tying that back into like being raised, in a very heavy Indian culture, that's something that I've just always been ingrained with. And I think that definitely ties into the work I'm doing, where we want to make community change, not through like me and, the staff, but through our scholars. We want to show them like, hey, you are capable of doing this, especially when you all come together, learn from each other, talk to each other, see what you want to do together. And so what I love about like that is that, we're not coming in and saying, oh, this is how we want to change Trenton. We're inspiring our scholars and hopefully, giving them the tools to say, okay, we are, young women in Trenton. How do we want to change Trenton? What do we want to do to make this community more successful for all of us? And then, have that ripple out across hopefully the country and world.
Right. Yeah. And then you guys give them a framework. So
that's a little bit of a ramble. But yeah,
you guys are
that was a little bit of a ramble, but I think like that's going back to, being an Indian American. It really has shaped me. And I think it's really been, one of the most important factors in, going down this line of work and bringing myself to that. And then also like in terms of challenges, of course, being an Indian person working in a Black and Latino community, I always have to be very, I'm always learning, I'm always unlearning, and being just very cognizant of the privilege that I bring into any space, because obviously we've had such different experiences. And also doing the work in my own personal life to have these conversations like with my family members and my community, because there's ingrained racism in literally every single facet of America, especially with the whole model minority myth, like making sure that that's broken down, making sure that I'm not just working, in a space with Black and brown young women and then not doing the work within my own communities to change how they might like have ingrained thoughts and, bias, actions that are very harmful.
Okay. So we have about 5 more minutes left. We got to get through a couple of questions, right? So I want to ask the same of you, Kenrick, but then also I want to open it up for us to have this. Next few questions are, how can people support your work? And what do you need from the community that is missing today, right? And then my last question, right? Which is, what is the most important thing people should know about you? So I kind of want to open it up for you, Kenrick. Let's take it home for us.
Sure. So I think Constituent is going to be in 2 stages. We are trying to do a pilot for the New York municipal elections that are coming up on June 22nd. So hopefully we'll have something up and running where people can look at it and test it out and use it, right? Like you will find all that information as the race heats up. There's like 50,000 people running. It's a big undertaking to put them all on the app, but we're using a pilot app to see what happens. And then we're going to have the largest elections in the world's history in 2022 at all levels, right?
Yeah.
Because districting is happening at state and local levels across the country in the next 9 months. You're going to have literally tens of thousands of elections. We would love to be more established by then, so we have a part to play in those primaries. So one, if we can get the app together to pilot it, we would love to have folks take a look.
Great. I'm sure you drop that in the chat if you don't mind, and tell us how they can
Yes.
download it as well.
Absolutely. In terms of what I would need from community, vote. Right? Like it is, we're trying to make it easier for you to get information and get involved, but there are ways of getting involved now. Until Constituent comes along, please get out and vote. There's a big election coming up in New York. It will shape the future of the largest city in this country. It should not be 10% of us making those decisions. Please do that. New Jersey has elections coming up. Virginia has elections. This is our lives. And 3, I'm a perfectionist. So that's just something that's built into me. So I'm always going to try to sacrifice the good to the great. And I need accountability partners. So if there's something, you can hit me on the head or, say, look, this is good enough, or this is damn good. It does not have to be perfect. Or I will be tinkering it with, until, the last day I'm alive. So that's something I do not hold other people those standards, but I do hold myself to that standard. And it's
Nand, what hit me before, we have 2 minutes, right, before we close. Nandini, I want you to, answer the same thing, of course. What came to me right now was that, we need to be at the level where you're dealing with the young ladies where they're 13 years old, maybe 12, 13 years old, maybe even before then, is when we need to start having these conversations with Kenrick, right, that Kenrick is talking about, where you get people involved and letting them know that this is at the level. They should be understanding what empowerment looks like way before they're 18 years old, right? And I think that might be, part of the key to the future. I'm not saying that I have the answer, but I do think that, it could definitely help. Nandini, let's you take it. Let's end with you with what you should know, what you need, and what is the most important thing we should know about you.
Yeah, I think in terms of the most important thing, I think I touched on it earlier, but I think I walk around with like a sense of very big responsibility in every aspect of my life, whether it's my personal life or my work, or like the way to, what I can do to change society moving forward. I think, and that's what it, like Kenrick was saying, it can be hard sometimes, but I think that's also what motivates me to, go to work every day, to be passionate and teach myself things every day. It's kind of a double-edged sword, but I think it's far more beneficial because I think having that sense of responsibility motivates me and also others around me. So I would say, try to find the reason, like why you're doing what you're doing, and focus on that even through the hard times, because that's something that's definitely like been very, very important to me. And in terms of how you can support Homeworks, our website is homeworkstrenton.org. So I really encourage you to go and check that out, learn more about what we do. And in terms of what you can do, there's a variety of things. We are always looking for volunteers and things like that. And we also are putting up a list of culturally responsive resources that you can also go to and, check out and educate yourself, read, share with others around you, with like podcasts, movies, books, articles, all those things. So I would say go check that out as well.
Homeworks, what's the website again? Yeah. Say the website one more time.
Yeah, homeworkstrenton.org. I'll type it in. I can type it in the chat.
And Kenrick? How do we download your app or?
We're not up yet, so hopefully by this weekend, but anybody can contact me and I will send a link.
Okay, great. Thank you both so much for this wonderful conversation. I hope that everyone that has participated and will listen post this live conversation will get involved with both homeworkstrenton.org and Kenrick Ross, Kenrick Ross, ROSS.co. Is that it?
Nope, at gmail.com.
At gmail.com. I thought I moved there. Okay. Thanks so much. And I hope that you will participate and follow us through our Impact State of Mind series. Have a great afternoon.